Okay, good morning everybody in the UK, good afternoon everyone in China, and good day everyone in between. Welcome to our webinar this morning on the Chinese e-commerce opportunity, selling direct to Chinese consumers through the Royal Mail Tmall store. So e-commerce is one of those things that is hot in China, how people engage on their telephones, on their computers, in retail, and in sharing thoughts and ideas and recommendations, etc., is one of the key things for UK retail companies as they look at this market. But it is not without challenge, it is not without cost. A lot of the time it can feel very much like throwing a grain of sand at the desert. So our session this morning is very much about navigating through one of the practical solutions that are available to all UK companies with this Royal Mail Tmall store. And we have some excellent speakers. We have Mark Headley, our own e-commerce expert here at CBBC. We've Jasmine Chambers at Royal Mail, and Chow Liu and Simon Craddock from Avenue51. We have a long session, so I'm going to plow ahead pretty quickly. Just to give you a little bit of background on ourselves, the China-Britain Business Council helps British and Chinese businesses and organizations work together in China, the UK, and third markets around the world. With 60 years of experience and experts in 11 UK offices and 15 Chinese locations, we support companies of all sizes and sectors, whether they're new entrants or established operations, to realize the full potential of what remains one of the fastest growing markets in the world. Harnessing expertise from our 60 years of experience, we support companies of all sizes and sectors, from multinationals to SMEs. Operating alongside the British Chamber of Commerce in China, our diverse 1,000 strong membership includes some of the UK's largest and most established companies, some of the UK's most dynamic and innovative SMEs, as well as leading Chinese companies. We also work closely with cities and local enterprise partnerships to help them forge the links to drive local economic development. The unrivaled network of 130 staff across 26 locations understands the sectoral, geographical and cultural aspects of business success with China. So that's just a little bit of background on who we are ourselves. Please do get in touch, follow us on Twitter, and follow our hashtag for all sorts of different bits and pieces. So before we get going, I just want to give you a little bit of background on how technically it works. If you would like to ask a question, you just type it in there. It will pop up on my screen. If it's pertinent to the flow of the speaker, I'll interrupt the speaker. If not, I'll save it till the end. And if we don't get to it on the day, I will be happy to pass it on to the speakers who can follow up afterwards. So at this point, if I could just ask you to click on the button here that says raise your hand, and that will just help me make sure that I am not speaking out into the ether. So if I can just make sure I can see lots of hands being raised. I can. Very good, class. Yeah, just click on the raise your hand. Brilliant. Thanks very much. I'll put everybody's hand back down again, and I think it is time to get going. So what I will do is unmute my colleague Mark. Mark Headley, are you out there?
I am out there, yes. Thanks, David. I'm going to keep it fairly brief this morning because I think that most of us have tuned in to hear more about the Royal Mail Tmall store. So I just wanted really to frame the situation in China in terms of what's happening in at a high level with the e-commerce market. As David says, it is a hot topic. E-commerce in China just seems to grow exponentially from one year to the next, and I think that we're witnessing a boom, not just in e-commerce, but I think a more general boom in the Chinese consumer market, something that's been driven by government policy. China's looking to rebalance its economy away from investment and exports and towards more domestic consumption, and more generally the growth of the service sector. And e-commerce is a big part of that. Obviously, improvement in logistical infrastructure in China, growing access to the internet. So you can see I've just included a few stats there in terms of internet usage. China this year currently has, the most recent statistics are 688 million. So probably by now we're over 700 million internet users. It's only just over 50% penetration rates, and the government actually is targeting an internet penetration rate of 80+%, which means that within a decade we may well have 1 billion Chinese internet users, and just last year alone 40 million new internet users. Other stats on there that I think are quite interesting for marketers is the fact that most new internet users are actually jumping straight to mobile devices. So China is really a mobile-first market. In fact, you could probably describe it as a mobile-only market. I think the Tmall's Singles Day promotion last year, 70% of transactions happened via mobile devices. And again, that's about infrastructure. So, rolling out 4G networks across the country have really improved access to the internet. And yeah, most of China's new internet users are accessing the internet via a smartphone. E-commerce itself has grown as a result of that. So the market's valued somewhere in the region of $700 billion US, but again, by 2017, the market will have reached $1 trillion US, which will make it the biggest e-commerce market in the world. It's growing by 42%. It grew by 42% last year, and of course, this is against a backdrop of declining GDP growth in China. So China's economy is slowing down, but retail and consumption is speeding up, and it's a paradox that can sometimes be difficult to sort of truly get our heads around. But ultimately, slowing China but growing consumer opportunity, and of course, it's just unlocking more opportunities for retailers that can find a way to access that growing pool of internet users that are regularly using their mobile device to buy things online. So next slide, please, David. Of course, the ecosystem looks very different from the UK. The UK is a much more mature e-commerce environment. Omni-channel retailers dominate in the UK. In China, the opposite is the case. Actually, the market's dominated by third-party e-commerce platforms, many of which will be probably quite unfamiliar to many people out there. It's a market that's dominated by local players. I think that 9 out of 10 B2C e-commerce transactions will be via a marketplace, an online marketplace. And as you can see from the pie diagram there, the biggest marketplace by far is Tmall. JD.com is probably the second largest with about a quarter of the market, and then the rest of these players divide up the B2C remaining market share. And of course, the others, the 5.8%, there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of smaller platforms out there. Some of these platforms, I mean, they're all quite different the way they work. Some of them more like Amazon, more general trading internet platforms. Others like Tmall require a lot more effort from the brands themselves to establish a store. And that's one of the major challenges about e-commerce in China, is the investment that's required to establish a presence on some of these domestic marketplaces. So moving on to the next slide. So another kind of key trend that we've seen the last 18 months or so really is the opening up of cross-border e-commerce. And I suppose my definition here of cross-border e-commerce is selling to Chinese consumers via platforms that do not require the UK merchant to establish a local entity in China, i.e. register a business or sell via a distributor through the kind of traditional B2B to C, the traditional route. So what cross-border e-commerce enables shoppers to do is to buy from retailers overseas, either directly from an overseas website or from a cross-border e-commerce marketplace. And we've seen this market kind of promoted by the Chinese some recent changes around tax and duties. So on the 8th of April, the government issued a joint circular which clarified the tax rates for cross-border e-commerce. There were some anomalies in the way that products were previously being taxed that were being sent to China through e-commerce channels. What this does is it introduces a new system whereby any product sold via cross-border platforms will now pay a reduced rate of VAT and possibly consumption tax depending on the product, whereas previously they were paying a special rate called the personal parcel tax rate. Now this is quite a complex piece of legislation. The taxes are they will, I think that any brand that's looking to sell into China needs to really look at the detail of what these new regulations mean for their particular product category, because it's very much going to depend on the total value of the item that you're shipping to China, in terms of whether or not, in terms of which rates apply and whether you can whether the lower rate of VAT applies or the original personal parcel tax rates. The other announcement was the announcement of the positive list, which is a list of I think about 1,200 products which are authorized to be sold through cross-border channels. Now there were some omissions from that list. So if you're supplying anything like health food or cosmetics or certain categories of food and drink product, it may well be that you're excluded from that list. So it's important to look at that and to understand whether or not you can actually sell via this channel. Okay, next slide please.
And for those of you, by the way, Mark actually wrote a very good retail insight. If you go to our website, cbbc.org, the first thing that you'll see pop up on the top screen there will be Mark's analysis of this, so definitely worth watching. Mark, I'm a little conscious of time, so if you could keep it sort of speeding along, that'd be super. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, this slide, to be honest, I'm not going to go through all the detail. I think the key points really are that there are effectively 4 different ways to sell online in China cross-border. So the traditional way, which I spoke about, B2B, cross-border through bonded warehousing, which is where you have inventory stored locally in a bonded zone in China. Cross-border, so direct shipping, where you're selling via a cross-border platform, but then the product itself is shipped directly via international courier to the overseas, which of these. And certainly we'd encourage any businesses out there interested in this to speak to CBBC to find out a bit more about how this would impact your business selling via each of these channels. Okay, so I just have one more slide, David, if you want to flick over. So challenges. I mean, obviously, one of the key things we'd always highlight is the importance of protecting IP trademarks when selling into China. Ultimately, China is the first to file market, so this is probably the biggest risk that any single company faces in China. So we would encourage businesses looking at this opportunity to speak to us about how they can protect their brand, how they can protect their IP. Obviously, regulations are quite important in terms of the new e-commerce rules. Again, understanding whether or not your product is on that positive list or not. And if you're selling via the B2B route, understanding what's required in terms of product approvals and customs inspection processes, etc. A host of other issues to be aware of. The devil is very much in the detail when it comes to selling to Chinese consumers. Again, I'm not going to go through these one by one, but very happy to follow up with any businesses that would like some more advice on any of these issues. So with that, I will hand back to David and across to Jasmine to talk more about the Royal Mail opportunity.
Thanks, thanks, Mark. And at the end, you'll be able to get Mark's contact details if you want to talk to him a little bit more. So now what I'm going to do is look for Jasmine. Let me just give me 1 second while I get her on line. Jasmine, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. As I said before, you do sound like you're at the bottom of a well a little bit. So snuggle up very close to that microphone and do shout.
Okay. Hi everybody, my name is Jasmine. I work for Royal Mail as e-commerce director for China. I'm responsible for the Royal Mail Tmall store project. So in my presentation for the next 10-15 minutes, I would like to go through 3 main points. I think that would be some of the questions many of you may want to ask. First one is, what is the Royal Mail Tmall store? Second, why should my brand become part of the Royal Mail Tmall store? And third, how does the store work? Next slide, please. So before we look what is the Royal Mail store, let's see some of the background information about Tmall and the Tmall Global. Next slide, David, please. As we heard from Mark's presentation, online marketplaces are hugely popular in China, with 90% of online shoppers use them. The Tmall tops the list as the most popular B2C platform for Chinese consumers. Tmall is owned by Alibaba Group, the world's biggest online e-commerce company, making up around 50% of China's B2C market. Next slide, David. Tmall has launched Tmall Global. Tmall Global is an extension to Tmall.com. It is a B2C open retail platform. The platform creates a huge opportunity for businesses outside of mainland China to sell directly to millions of Chinese consumers. Next slide. Royal Mail storefront on Tmall Global. Royal Mail has launched a Royal Mail branded flagship store on Tmall Global in 2015. In case you want to have a look what the site looks like, or the store looks like, the URL is rm.tmall.hk. But please bear in mind, it might look how the store look and feel might be different to what you expect to see from a Western e-commerce site. It is with the design and how the store look is with Chinese taste and culture in mind. The Royal Mail Tmall store offers
Jasmine, just going to slow you down there. Could you give maybe 1 or 2 points on what that might mean? I mean, I know people can look at it, but when you say a different style, so there might be some people on today who don't know what you mean by that. What would a Chinese retail site, how would it look differently to one in the UK? Just 1 or 2 points.
Sure. Typically, first thing you will notice, the site is very busy. It's full of images
Is it us? It's more likely to be on there.
Two examples, the latest British brands is Headley, a self-employed baby bottle manufacturer, and Jasmine, an online health and beauty retailer. They take their place alongside other British brands, including the Cambridge Sexual Company and Waitrose. The site is managed by Avenue51.
Hi Jasmine, we've just had some technical issues. Would you like me to change the slide? You just went quiet for a bit there. Apologies.
No, that's fine. I'm just going to go on the last point.
Great.
The site is managed by Avenue51.
Okay.
So Avenue51 is an approved Tmall partner which Royal Mail choose to run its Tmall store. It is a company formed by a group of Anglo-Chinese e-commerce and logistics experts. Their team includes people who've worked for Alibaba and experts of UK to China logistics, as well as Chinese marketing, customer service, and web development. So, as such, Avenue51 is responsible for a large part of the implementation and development process for the store. We have specialists from Avenue51 today who will talk about what products will sell best on our storefront and in China in general, how to do marketing for your brand and products in the market, and how to overcome some of the common challenges. So move on to the next question. Why should my brand become part of the Royal Mail Tmall store? Two reasons. First one, I think, is the trust factor. So in a crowded market, Chinese consumers focus on authentic products from trustworthy sources, for which they will often pay a premium. According to our own research, quality and authenticity are the main reasons for Chinese consumers to choose UK products. Royal Mail is one of the world's most trusted brands, a brand which also has a wide brand recognition in Chinese markets due to being the dominant UK-China postal carrier. Since its launch, Royal Mail's Tmall store has already achieved high satisfaction ratings from Chinese consumers. For example, the store ratings for logistics, product descriptions, and customer service are 4.8, 4.8 and 4.7 respectively out of 5, which matches some of the best store fronts on the platform. So being with the Weibo Tmall store, sitting alongside many other great British brands, will deliver a huge increase in brand awareness for you in China. By being part of a broad range of product categories, where quality, authenticity and reliability of supply will develop confidence and trust amongst the Chinese consumers for your brand. Next slide please, David. The second reason for being part of Weibo Tmall store is that the Weibo Tmall store is the quickest, easiest and the most visible means of accessing the Chinese e-commerce market today. As we have heard from Mark's presentation, the potential of China's e-commerce market and the growth is without a question. But building and running an e-commerce store in China is challenging, time-consuming and costly. And we know it because Weibo has set up and running an e-commerce store in China. So the Weibo store is designed to remove many of the challenges that UK companies face in getting products in front of Chinese consumers. To name a few, like shipping, customs, duty, payment, currency exchange, returns, translations, custom inquiries. With Weibo Tmall store, you have the opportunity to join a highly rated Tmall store at a fraction of the cost and without the risk of setting up a storefront of your own. Together with Avenue51, we can help you with simple setup, providing you with local knowledge and integrated door-to-door logistics. Next slide. So how does the store work? Next slide. I'd like just to run through some of the main points of how the store works. So once you've passed the qualifying stage, we will work with you to agree the initial product range and sales capacity. You will then provide evidence of brand registrations and permissions. This is a mandatory requirement from Alibaba and Tmall. You then accept the terms and conditions with Weibo's licensed partner Avenue51. You provide product imagery and the details which we will then translate and integrate onto the Weibo Tmall storefront. This is now can be also done through an automated online system. So you can log on and upload your product imagery and detail at the time that suits you. We will then confirm your positioning on the storefront. We establish order processing and fulfillment integrations and processes as necessary. We manage customer orders and send these to you to fulfill with our shipping label and documentation. The shipping label and the documentation can be downloaded from the merchant portal that Avenue51 will set up and set up the access for you. You then dispatch the orders with 24 hours of receiving an order direct to consumer and using the export documentation that we provide. All shipping costs are funded by consumer. So you don't need to worry how much individual order cost will be for each order. The shipping cost will be for each order. Unless the customer raises an issue with the order, Tmall release the funds and your payment is deposited in your bank account in line with our agreement. We'll deal with with the customer and the Tmall in the relevant of any event of any issues, or if there is a need to return the product, and we'll liaise with you as needed. So hopefully this gives you an overview how the store works.
Jasmine, we're having some pretty significant areas with your sound, so I'm hoping everybody can hear. But we will definitely share these slides afterwards. So I'm going to move the slide forward. Are you still there, Jasmine?
Next slide. So, if the store proposition meets your needs and you want to apply, the site you needed to go on is rawmail.com/Tmall. On that website, you will see a video to explain the store proposition, and if you fill in some of the basic information about the company, one of the team member will contact you to go through a set of qualifying questions. If you meet the requirement, then you will be given a reference code and a link to allow you to log on to a site to upload your application. And with that link, you will have access to a very detailed FAQ document that will answer any questions regarding the process. So I hope this gives you a flavor of what Rewatch Tmall store is, the benefits of being part of it, and how the store works.
Thanks, Jasmine. We have had some issues with your sound, unfortunately, but I think with your slides it was possible to follow along what you're saying. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move along to hand over to our friends here from Avenue51 who are sitting beside me, which means hopefully there should be less issues. I did see I have some questions here for Jasmine. Because of the sound issues, I'm going to save those until the end and see if we can't get them answered either by some other colleagues or we can pass them on to Jasmine, but I'm a little concerned at her sound issues. So we have Chow and we have Simon here. Good morning to you both. Over to you.
So good morning, everyone. My name's Chow, and I'm the co-founder for Avenue51. So this is really an introduction to what Avenue51 does and how we are involved in the Raw Mail Tmall project. So first of all, Avenue51 was set up to help British businesses to access the Chinese market, and mainly that's through a cross-border format. So really we provide an end-to-end solution from for any brand or any merchants looking to sell into China. We provide an integration solution that allows you to upload your product onto our central database, and then our databases then enables you to sell onto multiple different platforms, including Tmall, JD, VIP. In total, there's about 5,000 different Chinese marketplaces. But of course, one of the main platforms that we work with is the Raw Mail Tmall store. Raw Mail have set up their own Tmall store to help British merchants to lower the barriers of entry into China. But apart from the IT integration, we also offer market analysis, Chinese payment, marketing, logistics, and customer services. So if we move on to the next slide. So here it's a brief description of the team. So there's myself. I co-founded Avenue51, but my background has been in logistics. We run one of the biggest exporting companies from UK to China, and we're also the largest customer for Royal Mail going from UK to China. And then there's my other co-founder, James Hardy. He was at Alibaba for 2 years running the European operation for Alibaba, so he knows Tmall and many of the other marketplaces very, very well. Also, I've got my colleague Simon, who's our Chief Marketing Officer, and Simon's lived in China for a number of years and set up PR companies there as well. So next slide, please. I think what would be useful is to look at what are the type of products Chinese people buy and why they buy from the UK. So those are I guess the four main reasons. Number one is royalty. That's extremely popular. A very good example would be if any of you guys watch watch Dragon's Den, you may have heard of a product called the Tangle Teaser. Well, it was Kate Middleton at that time was spotted using the brush, and a Chinese social blogger picked it up, posted a photo, and tweeted it to her friends. And within 3 months, Tangle Teaser was the thing to have in China. Currently, Tangle Teaser sells roughly 100,000 brushes a month, and it's in China it's known as the Princess Comb. Given that a Tangle Teaser brush is sold at £22 in China, and your average comb in China costs usually £3 to £5, you can see that Chinese consumers are not buying on price, but they're buying it because of the value, of the quality, and that's why they actually love the Tangle Teaser. Also, it's the tradition and the history that the Chinese love to buy, and the reason is a lot of the Chinese companies were set up very recently in the last 20 or 30 years. But what they love about British products is that it's got heritage, it's got history, and it's got a story behind it. So those are the things that the Chinese consumers look out for. So what we find currently is that a lot of British brands sell really well in China, not because they've done a lot of marketing in China itself, but because they've really focused on the Chinese community based in the UK. There's about 300,000 Chinese people living in the UK at the moment. They've come to the UK mostly to study at British universities, and usually to be able to afford to study at a British university, your family needs to be at a certain social status or income level, because it costs roughly £100,000 to study for 3 years at a British university. And therefore, if you capture the population in the UK, the Chinese population in the UK, then and these people start to share or talk about your product, then on average they'll have 500 to 600 friends or family that they're connected to via social media, and they'll start to share stories and share positive reviews about your product, and that's how your product can trend socially on Chinese social media. And I think it's really, really important. There's many examples. For example, the Body Shop, they can't sell in China. They haven't spent a penny in Chinese marketing, but on Tmall, on the JDs, they're selling extremely well. The same goes to Tangle Teaser. They never spent anything on Chinese marketing when they entered into the Chinese market, but it was picked up by social media, and then it just caught on. So what I'm trying to say to you is it's probably much better that we start to work with the Chinese community in the UK, and then the Chinese consumers in China will start to want to buy your product, and then they will go on to platforms like the Royal Mail Tmall store to make the purchases. So let's just look at some of the products that the Chinese consumers like to buy. So here we have a graph, a pie chart of all the key categories, but really the most popular is maternity, it's healthcare, and it's health and beauty. So that's cosmetics, clothing, footwear. So those are the key categories. There's stories behind that. So in terms of maternity, for a long time, China had a one-child policy. So for parents, they want to do their best for the child. They want to buy them the best toys, the best clothing, the best educational products. And unfortunately, going back 6-7 years ago, China had a major formula milk scandal where 12 babies were killed and 5,000 babies had permanent brain damage. And because of this event, a lot of Chinese parents lost confidence in Chinese-made formula milk, which is why they've turned to the UK, Netherlands, Australia to buy formula milk. And that's what really got them buying from Crossborder. Once they've started to buy formula milk, they thought, why not buy some clothing, my children's clothing, and then it went on to toys and then healthcare. So that's how the cross-border market really expanded. So nowadays, Chinese people buy a lot of healthcare products, for example, Vitabiotics and Holland Backs, in terms of cosmetics as well, because they think the British brands are more innovative and they're better. So those are the key markets. But in reality, if you look at the Royal Mail store, pretty much every brand that has come on have sold an item, and some have been very, very successful, which I can give some examples later on. So as you can see on this slide, it gives you a snapshot of what's been sold on the Royal Mail Tmall store. So you can have so this is a summary. So you've got a Monica Vinader hand bracelet next to a Brompton bike, next to a mobile phone cover, and of course we've just recently launched Waitrose, so we're selling tea back to China. But of course the way the Royal Mail Tmall store is laid out is in a department store format. So you have the first level is maternity, then you've got health and beauty, then you've got healthcare, and so on and so forth. So the way it's been laid out is very logical, and if as a consumer, if you're looking at particular categories, you can find it on the store.
Sorry, Chad, just a quick question. Looking at this, sorry, so this isn't how it's laid out here. Just for an SME or a company that's not familiar with China and these sorts of platforms, like this looks pretty hard to navigate. It looks like somebody's just thrown a whole lot of products at a wall and they've stuck. So is this actually how it looks?
No, absolutely not. So what you see on the left is a summary of some of the products that we sell. It's been arranged in an order of when it's been listed. So that's why the way it's laid out. All
right, so it is as the department store that you said, you search by category and all of that kind of thing.
Correct.
Okay.
So what you see on the right is how the front page looks. So it's got a map of Britain and then some discount codes, but below that, that's where it's got the different floors. So you've got the maternity, healthcare, sports, and so on and so forth.
All right, terrific. Thanks.
Great. So if we move on. So in terms of how the Royal Mail Tmall store set up, I think we're very, very fortunate that Royal Mail have invested a lot of money in the Tmall store, and Tmall itself is very supportive of the store itself. So Jack Ma, who is the founder of Alibaba and also the founder of Tmall, he personally endorsed the Royal Mail Tmall store, and this is how he sees Tmall developing in the next couple of years.
Just a quick question on that is, I mean, are the Royal Mail pioneers in this? I mean, this is for Jasmine, I guess, but Jasmine, we're just having some sound issues there. Are other countries' postal companies doing the same thing? You know, is American Postal got a Tmall store or anything,
Sure.
or is it just Royal Mail?
So I guess Royal Mail isn't the pioneers. I think Ozpost beat us to it.
Right.
They were 6-7 months ahead of us, and then came New Zealand Post. But within 3 months, the Royal Mail store was achieving more sales in terms of gross sales than Ozpost and New Zealand Post put together.
Okay.
So the Royal Mail store has been very, very successful in that sense. And from a Tmall point of view, they now want that we're in the process of turning the Royal Mail Tmall store into a Great British store, because essentially the Royal Mail store can sell across categories. And that's very, very useful for Tmall, because Tmall can recommend lots of brands, great British brands, to the Royal Mail site, and we're able to host these products.
Sure.
But and the other thing is the Royal Mail Tmall store gets 3 times the number of traffic than the average Tmall store. But that doesn't mean there's no work required from the brands or the merchants who are interested on the Royal Mail Tmall store, because particularly if you're an SME, I think you still need to work on the marketing side in order for people to to want to search for your product or to buy your product. And this is where Avenue51 can help. We work with a lot of key Chinese social marketeers. We also run promotions. We can also create great PR as well as advertising, which we'll go through in the following slides. So this is what you see on the bottom right-hand corner is a very interesting graph. So this is for fashion. What it shows is on the top, it shows when a Chinese consumer is looking to buy from Crossborder, 40% of them will go to a platform like Tmall to do their initial search. Another 24% will go to Taobao. So Taobao is the equivalent to our eBay almost. And 34% will go through to a search engine. Once they've done their initial research, then they will 15% will go to will be convinced that they want to buy this product, but they want to look at the cheapest place where they can buy from. So usually this is a flash sale site or group buying site similar to Groupon. But with the middle 2 segments where they continue to search, what it shows is that they're still undecided. They're continuing to search what products to buy, and this is where they then turn to social media, and this is where social media becomes incredibly important, because the majority of consumers, if they want to buy a jumper, the majority of them are not decided about which brand or what type of jumper to buy, and this is where they turn to their friends and family for advice and inspiration. So if we just move on, and the Chinese.
Sorry. So when you say social media, what are they looking for? They're looking for other reviews of a product, or they're looking for their friends to have talked about it, or so when you say turn to social media, and I think maybe you can very quickly talk about a couple of the social media platforms as well. We will get to that in due course. But what do you mean by turning to social media?
So number one, the Chinese consumers tend to look at what their friends and family are recommending, or what they're buying, or, what they're wearing, and apart from that, then they'll go through to KOLs, so key opinion leaders, what these people are reviewing and which brands the key opinion leaders think is worth buying, and that's what is and they're hugely influential. For example, one of the products that the Royal Mail store sells is called Works with Water, and when Works with Water first entered into the Chinese market by accident is when a social blogger put a tweet out on her social media account to say Works of Water is a great product, and over 30 minutes she had 1,000 sales.
And was that? I mean, there's other stories. I think Tangle Teezer have a similar sort of story, and there's a lot. Was that Works with Water one? Was that a paid thing, or did it just happen?
Well, so with Works Waters, that was it just happened by accident.
Okay. And these KOLs, are they football stars or pop stars, or are they just guys and girls who create a large following? What's the demographic in China?
I mean, a lot of these KOLs, they are just normal, mostly students who want to express their opinions, and they've just built up a large following. Avenue51, we like to work with UK KOLs. So there's a couple of big accounts which I'll go through, and again, these guys are very, very influential.
Okay.
So where we have it, so these are the KOLs that we work with. So there are two key platforms in China. Number one is Weibo, which is similar to our Twitter, and number two is WeChat, which is very similar to WhatsApp. So on Weibo, the yellow bar you see on the left is the UK's number one KOL. He's got about 4.5 million followers.
And for those who can't read it, it's Yingguo Naxie Shi, which is kind of British stuff, I guess.
Yes.
And it's incredibly well known.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this guy, his followers are they're people. Pretty much every Chinese person in the UK would follow what he writes. A lot of people who wants to come over to the UK to study or to work would follow this guy. So pretty much anyone who's related to the UK would want to follow these guys.
Okay, so these guys are pretty important. I'm conscious of time, and we've got a couple of Q&As. If you have questions, please do type them in. I've got a few to hold on for the end. So these bloggers, these third-party guys are really, really important. Yeah.
Yes, and what we like to do is when we promote, when we launch a new product, ideally the brand would have an initial promotion for coming onto the store, and that's linked to a social media blogger who will push the product. So everything's kind of related.
Great. Well, we've got a couple of questions about who they are and what the names of the bloggers are, and I know some of that was in Chinese text, so we'll happily follow up to give a little bit more direction on that.
Sure. So yes, so I in China, I think there's 50 odd different sort of dialects, and there's Mandarin, and there's Cantonese.
Okay. So in terms of just putting context on your stuff, yeah.
Correct. So I've briefly touched before that we've just launched Waitrose. It had a lot of newspaper coverage, PR coverage in the UK, and as well as in China, and we're getting good sales for the Waitrose brand on the Royal Mail Tmall store.
Okay, terrific.
I think this, again, we're just trying to highlight for any brand to launch into China, social media is just so incredibly important, especially if you're SME, where return on investment is really, really important. I think social media will give you that best return for your investment.
But it's still, it's not a question of just setting up a WeChat account. And there are steps. I mean, for anybody listening who doesn't have a WeChat account, to get a verified account, you need particular business licenses, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not just a case of opening up your phone and tapping away and wait for the orders. There are a whole lot of different complicated and occasionally expensive and bureaucratic steps to jump through, right?
Absolutely. And also, when you first set up an account, you've got no followers. So if you tweet, you've got no readers. So there's various strategies, how you can maximize your investment.
Okay. So I think the key message here that you're giving us, Chow, is that linking e-commerce with social media. Okay, it seems a no-brainer. Fine, we do it everywhere in the world. But the characteristics and differences of the platforms in China make it a slightly different animal, and it needs to be driven in a different way, I guess.
Absolutely. And there's some research where in the UK, a UK consumer would buy a product after seeing that product 11 times somewhere, so 11 touch points. In China, the average touch point is about 63. So you need to be out there to get your name promoted.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very different way of promoting, isn't it? Okay, so we'll move on to the practical challenges, and then, as I say, we'll go on to some Q&A. Please do type in your questions if you have them.
So I guess if you're not on the Royal Mail Tmall store, logistics is definitely a big challenge. How to get your stuff from the UK to China and have it customs cleared. Fortunately, Royal Mail Tmall store has lowered that barrier. Royal Mail can handle the logistics very, very well. IT, because we're selling cross-border, you need to be integrated to the Tmalls, the JDs. Again, Avenue51 have helped Royal Mail to set up all the IT integrations. For the merchants themselves, it's a very easy integration process with us. Payment, if you're not on Tmalls, Chinese people don't usually only 15% of the Chinese people in China have Master Visa cards. They use UnionPay. Again, if you're on the Royal Mail Tmall store, we use Alibaba's own payment system, which is called Alipay. Customer services, Avenue51 will provide all customer services for Royal Mail Tmall clients. So there are challenges if you want to go into China, but what we're saying is that Tmall, through the Royal Mail Tmall store, we've removed a lot of those barriers.
Okay. In terms of customer service, just before we move on, what are the challenges for customer service in China? And you say you provide all of the solutions for that. So what does that mean, that you have a person sitting, if a UK brand puts their product onto the Tmall site, you have a person sitting there who understands that product, and if somebody in China calls up and says, I've got a quality issue or I've got a usage issue, that you can handle that? Or?
Yes, so when we say customer services, there's pre-sales and there's after-sales.
Yeah.
So when we start to work with a brand, usually we like to get their FAQs or have their support guys to come to us, where they can train our guys in the UK. And but our Royal Mail Tmall customer services people, they're all based in China. But once our UK team understands the product better, then we can relay that message to our Chinese colleagues.
All right, interesting. Okay, so that's worth talking about. All right. So our next, what do you get by joining the Royal Mail Tmall store?
Right. So what Royal Mail Tmall store offers any brand is a great platform to host your product. Tmall gets on average 400 million unique visits a day. We've mentioned that within that is the Royal Mail Tmall store. The Royal Mail Tmall store gets 3 times more traffic than the average Tmall store. So by coming onto the Royal Mail store, you're getting a steady flow of traffic. But that's not to say your product is going to be instantly successful. We still need to work on the social media side, on the marketing side, in order to get people interested in your particular product.
And what about internal competition on the Tmall store? So are there, you can get drowned out on any on any e-commerce platform. Could a smaller company equally get drowned out by the bigger guys on the Royal Mail Tmall platform?
Sure. So I think the truth is that both us running the Royal Mail Tmall store and also Tmall, we're very results driven. So the products that sells best would be at the front of the page, whereas some of the other brands will be less prominent on the front page of the site. However, this is where for any brand it's really, really important that we work with yourself on the marketing, on the social media to get your brand up there. I mean, a best example would be Grow Gorgeous. So Grow Gorgeous is a hair growth serum. When they started working with us June of last year, and when they first started, they were a relatively small brand, unknown brand, particularly in China. We worked with them very, very closely, and by Singles Day, we sold 5,000 of their product in a single day, and now the Grow Gorgeous product is sold by 20 other marketplaces, and the Grow Gorgeous product, the Grow Gorgeous brand, has now been bought by a much, much bigger company because it's been so successful in China. And the Royal Mail Tmall store had a large part to play in this.
All right, terrific. So I want to move along onto Q&A. I'm going to sort of scoot you along quickly. Jasmine, I'm going to try and bring you back in here. Are you there, Jasmine? We've had some sound issues with Jasmine's connection. All right, I don't think we have Jasmine there. That's a pity. Guys from Avenue 51, a pretty practical question. How much does all of this cost?
So the initial onboarding process is £1,000, and with that you get 5 SKUs put onto the Royal Mail Tmall store, and that's the basic charge. If you need more SKUs, then it's for every 5 SKUs it's £250, and that's the cost of listing on the Royal Mail Tmall store.
For those of you who don't know what a SKU is, it's an SKU. It's a product. It's a thing. Is there a limit if I have loads of money? So if I am Waitrose or if I'm a big player, can I just put hundreds and hundreds of SKUs onto the system and again drown out the smaller companies?
Sure. I think in theory, yes, you can. I mean, from a Tmall side, there's nothing to stop you. I think from Avenue 51 running the Royal Mail Tmall store, I think we need to be sensible about this, because this is where the Chinese marketplaces differ slightly to the UK ones, because in UK with Amazon, a lot of people put 100,000 SKUs on and hoping that some of them will sell. In China, particularly on Tmall, they actually rank your products or your store down if you have lots of products that's been on the site but it's not selling. Okay. So this is where we need to make a balance.
Okay. Question from Chris here. Brand registrations. Does this platform effectively prohibit resellers, or would evidence of being brand stockist be sufficient on the Tmall platform?
So, it's a yes or no question. So if you're a reseller and you're selling a brand, for example, like Burberry, who already has a Tmall store, then Burberry has the right to say you cannot sell on the Royal Mail Tmall store because we have an official store. However, if you're reselling a brand that doesn't have their own flagship store, then you are allowed to sell as long as you can prove that your product have come from the brand owners.
Okay. Yeah, fair. So you have to demonstrate that you have the license or the right to be there.
You've got to demonstrate that you've got the genuine product.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's a little different. So, all right, but in order to have the genuine product, you need to have the relationship with the original brand in the first place.
What Tmall says is, as long as you can provide a proof of receipt, then that's what they'll be happy with.
Okay. There's probably a little more digging to be done that might take the lawyers a little while to get through than we have today. But a question from Jonathan: is there a commission on sales after initial listing? So how does that work?
So this is Simon. Yes, there is. The best way to view it is that for any product that you list on the Royal Mail store through the automated onboarding process, the £1,000 fundamentally covers getting you onto the site and the operational activity thereafter. For any individual product, we operate a system which is termed a buy price fundamentally, where there is a standard rate applied, which is a reduction on your UK retail price. So you take the UK retail price, you remove the VAT component, and then from that net price you take 35%. So that is in essence the commissions that covers all the fees and costs associated with the various platform charges that we have, and so on to actually operate the store. You therefore receive as a retailer 65% of the UK net of VAT recommended retail price per item. Hopefully that's clear. If it isn't, if you go through the URL that Jasmine provided and through the Q&A process there, alternatively, if you wish to go to the Avenue 51 website, which is www.avenue51.com, and follow the link at top right. There is an FAQ document available there that will answer all of those technical questions.
And that commission, does that commission include the delivery, or so when somebody goes onto Tmall, do they get an extra delivery charge?
No, that is catered for there. So it's about as transparent an offering as you can possibly hope to get in terms of customer service, delivery, all of those technical aspects, and the potential pitfalls that both Chow and Mark outlined earlier on are covered within that commission structure. So again, the FAQ document is probably the best place to look.
Okay, so the customer service and tech integration, is all covered within that. Okay, that should answer Sue's
partly
question.
Partly within £1,000 and partly within the commission.
Okay, very interesting. And another important question here from Jess, and Jess asks, can you help with IP registration in China before the launch on your platform? So what support? I mean, you'll notice Mark in his presentation, he listed IP as still one of the key things, and the message from the China Britain Business Council is, if you've even looked at China and with the map of China and thought about doing business there, register your trademarks and register all of your IP. But can you guys help with that at all?
So our co-founder James Hardy, he's a lawyer.
We'll forgive him for that.
But I think CBBC has actually got better contacts in terms of helping yourselves for IP registration. Although it's not a requirement for Tmall to have a Chinese trademark, but we would strongly recommend it as well.
Yeah, the actual requirement for access to the store is to either possess or have the right to the UK trademark. That's the bit that counts.
Okay. A question from Eileen here. Are you tied in to selling at your UK RRP, or can you sell at a higher price on Tmall? Interesting question.
Yes, so of course on Tmall, as a seller, we or you as a brand owner can sell at any price you like. However, I think for the Royal Mail Tmall store, for the Tmall store to be competitive, we benchmark ourselves against the UK retail price, and the reason is because if you do sell 30-40% higher, then a lot of the Chinese consumers in China, what they do is they just ask friends and family to buy it from a UK store and then send it back to them. So it's very difficult nowadays to get away with selling at a lot higher price compared to UK retail price.
Okay, so people are aware of prices, so you can't. You have to be. I mean, China is traditionally a very price-conscious market. I think.
Absolutely.
It comes down to what Chow said earlier on. They will go and search that 65, 63 touch points. They will literally come beyond the firewall and see what the product is on sale at here in the UK, and if it's cheap, they'll buy from it as long as they can work it out from the financial point of view in terms of the payment interface. There's no reason at all why they won't buy from the UK website as well. If it works out cheaper, and that's why we stick to the UK RRP as our base price to minimise not just the chance of that happening, but also to reduce the confusion and risk for the Chinese consumer. It does increase their propensity to consume if they can go to Tmall as a site that they trust and buy the product for an equivalent price that they can purchase it here.
Sure. And as one of our attendees points out, if you already have an e-commerce site in the UK, people can find out exactly. You can find your prices.
Absolutely.
Any price differential. Okay, so question from Gordon, another very practical question. Jasmine, I believe somebody can hear you, but we can't. So if you are there, do shout. Well, there you are. Jasmine, is there anything? Is there anything you'd like to add to any of the questions that have come out? There's been some very practical ones.
No, I think the Chow and Simon answered it really well, really comprehensively. Yeah, if anybody have any more questions or to expand into more detail, please let us know. We will we'll circulate the slides and also provide that link to the Royal Mail site /Tmall.
All right.
That site, so everybody have access to request a contact back.
Okay, well, I've got a couple more practical questions. I've got one from Gordon here. How long does it take for the revenue settlement in the UK and what exchange rates will be used. So it's a pretty practical one. When do the people get their money?
Well, that's a very good question, Gordon. So number one, in terms of the exchange rate, that's decided by Tmall or Alipay. Alipay has a daily rate, so the RMB versus the GBP. So that's been determined. Usually it's a few percent off Bank of China rates. So that's been decided by Alipay. In terms of the money that you actually receive, it's from when the money's been settled, and it's end of month. So pretty much you'll be looking at between 30 to 45 days.
Okay, 30 to 45 days. All right. I think I'm conscious of our time. We've a couple more questions, but what I'll do is I'm going to save them until allow people to follow up afterwards, because I'm conscious of we've gone over the 60 minutes. I'm going to just pull in my colleague Mark. Mark, anything you'd like to add from what you've heard today? If you're there.
No, not particularly. I mean, I think that we've covered an awful lot of ground there. I'm sure that people can follow up directly with Jasmine and Chow directly. Obviously, we've got just on that final slide a few resources that could be quite useful for people to look at. There's a huge amount of resource on our website anyway. We've done other webinars. There's the China Business Handbook, which goes into some detail on the practical aspects of business in China and e-commerce, things like trademarks, registering trademarks for China and that type of thing. So I would just encourage anyone that would would get some value from a further conversation to contact us directly. We're always happy to talk to any company, however small, about how we can provide more support to businesses looking to sell online in China.
Terrific. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, and I would highlight the Great British Brands Festival, which is going on in China. It started in Nanjing this week, was in Quanzhou the second 2 weeks of April. That's an initiative that we at the China Britain Business Council do. We'll have 8 cities throughout China where we'll give UK brands an opportunity to showcase themselves and give some access to the burgeoning Chinese market. Yeah, we've covered a lot today. Apologies for some of the technical issues with Jasmine. The sound, I think others could hear her or we couldn't. I'm not quite sure how it all went, but such is the vagaries of the internet. But I wanted to thank Mark, thank Chow, thank Jasmine, thank Simon, and thank all of you for your time. If you have any further questions, please do contact me. There's my details. This webinar session will be recorded, so if you want to have another go through it again, we'll share that. Also, we'll share PPT slides, etc. You'll receive an automatic email from the system within 24 hours, sort of directing you on where to go for the different collateral and the different contact details. If we didn't get to your question today, I will pass it on to the guys who were speaking, and they'll get back to you. Other than that, wish you all happy China business and Gong Xi Fa Cai and all of that kind of stuff. Have a great day. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.